We continue now at the top of Daf Yomi Meseches Makkos. This is Makkos Daf 11a. On the previous summit of Chama Bar Chanina said, why is it that the Parshas Rotzchim, the Parsha that discusses the murderers, meaning the Ari Miklat, why is it stated B'Lashon Azah in a harsh language? Rashi explains B'Lashon Azah B'chol Yehoshua Ksiv, in all of Sefer Yehoshua it's written Vayomer Hashem. It always says Vayomer, which is a softer language. V'kan Nemar Vayedaber Hashem El Yehoshua. Here it says Vayedaber V'dibor Lashon Azu, and the word Dibor, that is a language that indicates harshness. As the Gemara continues, D'chsiv, as it's written in the pasuk in Sefer Yehoshua, Vayedaber Hashem El Yehoshua Lemor. Hashem spoke to Yehoshua saying, Daber El Bnei Yisrael Lemor, speak to Bnei Yisrael, saying, Tenu lachem es orei hamiklat asher dibarti aleichem, again, which I spoke to you about in a harsh language, and that's talking about Orei Miklat. And the Gemara continues and answers, Mivnei shein shel Torah. The reason is because it is something that is from the Torah. Rashi explains, Mivnei shein shel Torah, Aval shara amiros she'amar, the other statements which were made, Lo amar diber l'kayim mitzvah haksuva b'Torah. It wasn't something, it should be Lo amar davar l'kayim mitzvah haksuva b'Torah. Nothing was said that's being mekayim a mitzvah that was written in the Torah, chutz mizu, with the exception of this, and that's why specifically over here it uses the word vayedaber. And the Gemara continues, L'meimer, does that mean to say D'chol dibor lashon kasher, that any time you use the word dibor, it's a harsh kind of language? And to that the Gemara answers in yes. K'dechsiv, as it's written, dibor ha'isha adonai ha'aretz itanu kashos, the master of the land. This is a pasuk by Yosef. The Shvatim, they say the master of the land, he spoke with us in a harsh manner. And so you see that the word dibor indicates a harsh manner. But the Gemara continues, Vatanya, but then we learn in a Braisa nidberu, the pasuk says nidberu. There's a pasuk in Malachi, oz nidberu yirei Hashem, and so the Braisa says a nidbru ela lashon nachas. The word nidbru is a language of nachas, a pleasing kind of speech. V'cheinu omer, and similarly it says yad beramim tachtenu, that he's going to have the nations will be under us. That means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to guide the nations in a gentle manner. And so you see in the exact opposite, you see the nidbru yadber, you see it's a language of a gentle manner. And the Gemara says to that, daber l'chud and yadber l'chud. The word daber has one indication, that means that it's going to be harsh, but yadber means in a more gentle manner. And the Gemara continues at the two dots with a mnemonic for the upcoming Gemara, Simone Rabbanan Mehemne V'Sifrei. And the Gemara says, Pligi bar Rabbi Yehuda v'Rabbanan. Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan, they argue about this. Why is it that a harsh language is employed in Sefer Yehoshua with regards to the Ari Miklat? Chad Omer Mipnei Shashiyim. One says it's because he delayed. He didn't separate those Ari Miklat right away. The Chad Omer, and the other one says Mipnei Shein Shel Torah, because it comes from the Torah, as we said above. Rashi explains, Mipnei Shashiyim Shelo Hifrishim La'achar Shecholko Miyad. He didn't designate or separate them immediately after dividing the land, until it was told to him from the mouth of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk says in Sefer Yehoshua, Vayichtov Yehoshua es hadvarim ha'ela b'Sefer Torah Elokim. It says Yehoshua wrote these words in the Sefer Torah Elokim. Pligi bar Rabbi Yehuda Reb Nechemia. There's a machlokis with regards to this pasuk between Rabbi Yehuda and Reb Nechemia. Chad Omer Shmona Psukim. One says this is a reference to the last 8 psukim in the Torah, where it says that Moshe Rabbeinu died, so Moshe didn't write those psukim. It was Yehoshua that wrote those psukim. The Chad Omer, the other opinion, says Arei Miklat, we're referring to the section of Arei Miklat which is from the Torah, but again it was written, it's mentioned in Sefer Yehoshua. Yehoshua wrote those in Sefer Yehoshua. And the Gemara says, B'shlam l'man damar ches psukim. I understand according to the one who says that this pasuk in Sefer Yehoshua is a reference to the 8 psukim in the Torah that Yehoshua wrote. Hainu d'chsib b'Sefer Torah Elokim. That's why it says he wrote it in the Sefer Torah Elokim, meaning he wrote it in the Chumash. Yehoshua wrote the last psukim of the Chumash. Elo l'man damar Arei Miklat, but according to the one who says that this pasuk is referring to the section of Ari Miklat that's written in Sefer Yehoshua, my b'Sefer Torah Elokim. Why does it say b'Sefer Torah Elokim? This was not written in the Sefer Torah, it's written in Sefer Yehoshua. And the Gemara says, Hachi Kamar, this is what it means to say, Vayichtov Yehoshua b'Sifro. Yehoshua wrote in his Sefer, as hadvarim ha'ela haksuvim b'Sefer Torah Elokim. These words which are written, which are mentioned in Sefer Torah Elokim regarding Ari Miklat. And the Gemara continues, Sefer Shetafru B'Pishtan, if you have a Sefer Torah which is sewn together, the pieces of parchment are sewn together with linen, Pligi bar Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Meir. There's a machlokas there between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir, whether that's kosher. Chad Omer kosher, one says it's kosher, V'chad Omer pasal, and one says that it is pasal, it is disqualified. And the Gemara explains, Laman damar pasal, according to the one who says it's disqualified, D'chsiv, because it's written in the pasuk, Laman tia Torahs Hashem Beficha. This is a pasuk by Tefillin, it says Laman tia Torahs Hashem Beficha, and it's a comparison, V'iskish kol HaTorah Torah kula l'tfilin. There's a comparison between the Torah and tefillin. Ma tefillin halacha l'Moshe Misinai l'tofran begidin. Just like by tefillin, there's a halacha l'Moshe Misinai that you have to sew it together using sinews. Afkol l'tofran begidin. So too with everything, when it comes to the Sefer Torah as well, it has to be sewn together with sinews. V'idach, and the other one says, no, ki iskish, what is that comparison for? L'muter beficha. It's saying that it has to be something, the parchment has to be made from the hide of an animal that is a kosher animal, that is mutter to your mouth, but lehilchosa, for things that are halacha l'Moshe Misinai, like sewing the tefillin with gidin, that's just halacha l'Moshe Misinai, lo iskish. For that purpose, it is not compared. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav says, Chazinan lehu l'tefillin devei chavivi, I saw the tefillin in the house of my uncle, the tefira bekisna, that they were sewn with flax, with linen, but that is not the halacha. And Rashi explains, Laman tia Torahs v'reisha dekra mishtoi b'tefillin. The beginning of this pasuk is talking about tefillin. V'iskish hacha Torah l'tefillin. Here we have a comparison between Torah and tefillin. And then the Gemara said, Ki iskish lamutter b'ficha. It's only being compared in terms of the fact that it has to be something that is mutter to your mouth. It has to be made from a kosher animal. D'chsev b'haikra b'ficha min hamutter b'ficha. It says it from in your mouth, from what is mutter to your mouth. She'in nechtaven al or behema tameah. The idea is it shouldn't be written on the hide of a non-kosher animal. And then the Gemara said, Lihil choseihen, in terms of their halachas, which is halacha l'Moshe Misinai, meaning l'davar she'eno kasav b'Torah, with regards to something that's not written in the Torah. So for that, there's not going to be a comparison. That's what the Gemara said, according to the other opinion. Uv'tfilin gufayu lo gamrinon le'ela mehalacha l'Moshe Misinai. Even by tefillin, this is all a halacha l'Moshe Misinai in terms of sewing it begidin lo yalfinan behekesha. So for that, we're not going to learn from a hekesh. And then finally, at the end of the Gemara said devei chavivi. I saw the tefillin of bei chavivi. That's Dodi. That's my uncle Achi Abba, the brother of my father. And again, that refers to Rabbi Chia. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Echad Mashuach B'Shemen HaMishcha, whether we're talking about a Kohen Gadol who's anointed with the anointing oil, that's talking about the Kohanim Gedolim that were anointed during the times of the first Beis HaMikdash. They used the Shemen HaMishcha, that's how they anointed the Kohen Gadol. V'Echad HaMeruba B'Begadim, or if you have a Kohen Gadol that was a Kohen Gadol through wearing the extra garments that the Kohen Gadol wears, that's how they anointed the Kohen Gadol in the second Beis HaMikdash. V'Echad She'avar Mimishichuso, and also, let's say you have a Kohen who served as a Kohen Gadol temporarily, and he's no longer the Kohen Gadol, he's already passed from being anointed as Kohen Gadol. Any of those Kohanim Gedolim, Machzir Nas HaRotzeach, if they die, then the Rotzeach, that murderer who was exiled to the Yar Miklat, he's able to return to his house. When the Kohen Gadol dies, the Rotzeach returns to his house, and that applies by any of these three kinds of Kohanim Gedolim. And the Mishnah continues, Rabbi Yehuda says, Af Mashuach Milchama, that's even true by the Mashuach Milchama, that's the Kohen that's anointed who speaks to the people before they go out to war. Machzir Nas HaRotzeach, when he dies, he also returns the Rotzeach to his home. And the Mishnah says, therefore, Imoseyan Shel Kohanim, the mothers of the Kohanim Gedolim, Misafkos Lehen Michyo Chsus, they would give food and they would give clothing to these murderers who were in the Yari Miklat, Kedei Shelo Yispalu Al B'neiim Sheyamusu, in order that these Rotzchim, they shouldn't daven that their sons should die, because they had an incentive, the people in the Yar Miklat, they had an incentive to daven that the Kohen Gadol should die, so that they can get out of the Yar Miklat. And the Gemara says, Minahani Mili, from where do we know this, that all these three kinds of Kohanim Gedolim, if they die, the Rotzchim get out of the Yer Miklat? Amar Rav Kahana says, the Amar Kra, because the Pasuk says it's going to be three times. The Pasuk says, Vayesha Ba'ad Mos HaKohen HaGadol, it says he stays there until the Kohen Gadol dies. Uchsiv, it's also written, Ki Be'ir Miklato Yeshav Ad Mos HaKohen HaGadol, again he stays in the Yer Miklat until the Kohen Gadol dies. Uchsiv, and it's also written, V'yacharei Mos HaKohen HaGadol, after the Kohen Gadol dies, three times, referring to those three kinds of Kohanim. Rabbi Yehuda Ksiv Krach, and Rabbi Yehuda, who had the fourth, he had the Mashuach Melchama, because there's another pasuk. The pasuk says Lashuv Lasheves Ba'aretz Ad Mos HaKohen, so he learns from that pasuk the fourth kind, which is the Kohen, who is the Mashuach Melchama. V'idach, now the other opinion, meaning the Tanakama, why don't they have that fourth? Midaloksiv Hagadol, since it doesn't say the word Hagadol in that last pasuk, Chad Me Hanachu, that's just a reference to one of the other Kohanim Gedolim that were already referenced before. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, "Lefikach imoseyan shel kohanim." Therefore, the mothers of these kohanim, they would give gifts to the rotzchim in the Yari Miklat in order that the rotzchim should daven, in order that the rotzchim should not daven, that the kohanim gedolim would die. And the Gemara says, "Time of the lo mitzlu." The reason why the kohen gadol doesn't die is because they didn't daven. These rotzchim didn't daven. Ha mitzlu ma'isi. But it sounds like if they would daven that the kohen gadol should die, the kohen gadol actually would die. But the Gemara says, why should that be? Vaksiv, but isn't it written in the pasuk? This is in Sefer Mishlei. Katsip tzipor lanud kadror lo'uf kain kilas chinam lo savo. It's like a bird that wanders, that flies away. So too a curse that is baseless, that's based on nothing, that's not going to come true. And so therefore, if they're davening that the Kohen Gadol should die, but the Kohen Gadol did nothing wrong, why would the Kohen Gadol then die? And the Gemara continues, there was a certain elder who said that from the lessons of Rava, he heard as follows: that these Kohanim Gedolim, they should have davened for mercy on their generation, and they didn't. In other words, they are held somewhat accountable for what happened, that these people killed by mistake, and so therefore, since it's not baseless, they did do something wrong, it is possible that they would die if the Rotzchim daven that they should die. And the Gemara continues, V'ika Damasni, some learn it slightly differently, that the Mishnah should say as follows: Kedei sheyispalu al b'neihem shelo yamusu. They gave gifts to the Rotzchim so that the Rotzchim who are in the Arei Miklat, they should daven about their sons that they shouldn't die. In other words, the mothers were hoping that they would daven that their sons should not die. And the Gemara therefore says, Taima demitzlu, so the reason why they don't die is because there's people davening for them that they should live. Halo mitzlu, but if they don't daven, maisi, apparently the Kohen Gadol would die. These Kohanim Gedolim would die. But my havalei lemevad, what else should they have done? What did they do wrong? A similar kind of question to the first version. And the Gemara continues, Hachamrin, and here they say, here is referring to Bavel, there's an expression about it. Tovia chata v'zigud mangid. Tovia is the one that sins, and Zigud is the one that he should get struck with lashes, meaning to say, again, the Rotzchim are the ones that did something wrong. Why should the Kohanim Gedolim die? And Hasam Amri over there in Eretz Yisrael, they say a different expression, same basic idea. Shechem Nesiv, Shechem gets married. This is talking about the episode of Shechem and Dinah. Umavgoi Gezir, now Mavgoi, he has to be cut, he has to get a bris milah. That, of course, is a reference to the story of Shechem and Dinah. But the point is, again, the person who didn't do anything, that's the person that ends up suffering the result. And so the Gemara says, like it said before in the first version, Amar hu saba mi pirkei de Rava Shmieli, a certain elder said, from the lessons of Rava, I heard, from the lectures of Rava, I heard, Shahaya lehen levakesh racham al doran velo bikshu. They should have asked for mercy for their generation, and they didn't do that, and that's why they get punished. And the Gemara continues, Ki hada hu gavra da'achle arya berichuk tlasa parse mine de Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. It's like the incident where a certain person was eaten by a lion 3 parses away from Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. V'lo ishtoi Eliyahu ba'adei tlasa yomi. And Eliyahu Navi did not speak with Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi for 3 days because of that, because he does hold some blame. Again, the same basic idea. He should have asked for rachamim, he should have asked for mercy on his generation, and he did not daven for that. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Yehuda Marav. Rav Yehuda says that Rav says, Kilalas chacham, the klala, the curse of a Talmud chacham, afilu bechinam hiba, even if it's baseless, it can still come true. Minalan, from where do we know that? Me'achitofel, we know that from Achitofel. Shebishah shakara David shisin, because at the time that David HaMelech, he was digging the shisin, which was the springs, the water that would come from the depths underneath of the Beis HaMikdash, kafa tahoma, so the water wanted to rise up, and ba lemishtafa Allah olma, it was going to sweep away the entire world with flood. Amar, so David HaMelech said, Ma'u lichtov shem achaspa, what's the halacha? Can I write the name of Hashem on an earthenware shard, umishta b'tahom, and throw it into the depths, the leko aduchte, that will cause the water to stay in its place? Leko damar le midi, there was no one who said anything, no one could answer the question. Amar, so David HaMelech said, Kol hayodea davar zeh ve'eno omro, anybody who knows the answer to this and doesn't say it, yechonek begrono, he should be strangled by his throat. Nasa Achitofel kal v'chomer bi'atzmo, so Achitofel made a kal v'chomer in his own mind. Amar, he said, Uma lasos shalom benish li'ishto, if in order to make peace between a husband and wife, Amra HaTorah, the Torah says, Shmi shenichta b'kedusha yimcha alamayim, my name which is written in holiness can be erased in water. That's referring to what we do by the sota. L'chol olam kulo, so for the entire world, lo kol shekain, certainly to save the world, we can erase the name of Hashem, and therefore, Amar le, therefore Achitofel said to him, he said to David HaMelech, Shari, it is permitted. Kasav shem achaspa, so David HaMelech wrote the name on the earthenware shard, Shadi atahoma nachas v'kam aduchte, and he threw it down into the depths, and the water stayed in its place. Now even so, even though Achitofel, he did give the answer to the question, but David HaMelech pronounced a curse, even though it's baseless, so to speak. Achitofel didn't do anything wrong, but since David HaMelech said that curse, ksiv, so it's written, Achitofel rak lo nesa, so Achitofel saw that his advice wasn't taken, and he saddled his donkey, it says he went to his house, and he strangled himself, and so you see essentially that the curse did become fulfilled. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Avo says, Kilalas Chacham, the curse of a Talmud Chacham, Afilu al Tanai Hiba, even if it was conditional and the condition doesn't happen, still it can come true. Minalan, from where do we see this? May Eli, we see this from Eli. The Kamer le Eli l'Shmuel, because Eli said to Shmuel, Kol Yasel l'cha Elokim v'chol Yosef, Im techached mimeni davar, so should Hashem do to you if you hide anything from me. V'yafa gav dechsiv, and even though it's written, Vayagid lo Shmuel, as kol advarim v'lo kiched mimenu, it says Shmuel told him everything and didn't hide anything. V'yafilu hach iksiv, nevertheless it is written, V'lo halchu bana b'dracha v'gomer, it says that his sons did not follow in his ways, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yud Aleph Amud Beis.